Today we're going to do something different from the Carz that we've been doing, because I also own an airplane, or at least have since this last fall. The airplane in question happened to be one that somebody else dumped into a ditch, literally. So they did a bunch of damage to it. Ended up buying the airplane and have been doing a large amount of work on various things that I can do myself. One of the things that I need to do here is make a piece that's missing from the interior of the airplane. The piece is missing for whatever reason. I have no idea. I don't know if it has anything to do with it having been dumped in a ditch, or somebody just never made one, or what the situation was. Because the airplane is fairly old. In this case, it's a 1946 Bellanca 14-13. And what we're going to do here is make the last piece that goes around the inside of the door opening. And all the rest of this has previously been done. I refinished the interior of this door opening because it was never finished by whoever had the airplane before me. Obviously it wasn't done that way by a factory, but it was definitely not finished somewhere in between 1946 and now, when the airplane was repainted or recovered. Down here at the bottom, the only part that's not done is the door sill area. And the door sill on the airplane consists of actually two pieces, which I've just slid in here. They've got to be refinished, and they're fairly hard to get in and out because every other piece being in here right now. But we got this one out. That's the inside one. And this is the outside one. Now, for reference, I'm going to mark these for the moment. And you can see they're in pretty dirty shape. We'll fix that up in this video too, show you how we're going to do it. Really easy to do. All right, here we have the door sill combination that goes in the airplane. It's made in two pieces. It has 4 main holes that get screws in it. Not sure what somebody did with that hole there, why it's even there. In this particular piece, because there appears to be no screw hole in the airplane below it. So I'll probably show a little way we fix that too. But here will be the 4 screw holes for these two pieces. They're the only two pieces in the door not currently finished. As you can see, I have removed part of the door trim on purpose so we can get this in and out easier. It's just too hard with that piece in to keep working with it. So that's where those two pieces are going to go. You can see this is the quality of what somebody had done on the airplane. Well, it might be serviceable, but it sure isn't nice, so we'll show you how we're going to fix this area up. We're certainly not going to put on a nice wrinkle finish, because the wrinkle finish would get gymmed up as people keep going in and out of the airplane. So we won't be doing that down here. Instead, we'll probably be finishing this up with a little wire brushing, but we'll show you that later. So these are the two pieces that are going to go here. Why the pieces matter, besides we have to finish them, is because right inside here, which Trish may have to go clear around the airplane in a minute to show you, there's no panel in the airplane here. It's completely missing. Here we are with Trish on the opposite side, so you can see there's no panel. It's just nothing. It's just not here. You can see there's a mounting screw here and a mounting screw here for the panel, but there's nothing with the airplane. We're going to take these two pieces out of the airplane. We'll just set them in it for now. So we're down to what the sill looks like, because the cage on the airplane is made of steel in this case. We're going to make a pattern for in here next. So I'm going to grab a piece of chipboard that we're going to use to start with. And here's our little piece of chipboard that we're going to start with. Now we got to get some sort of rough idea of what we have to do. So what I'm going to do using my Sharpie is just make a line on here and show myself kind of an angle that I can cut at, and then I'm going to cut that off. What we've done so far is I've actually cut this a couple of times off camera, getting an angle that's close to what it needs to be for the back portion of our pattern, because we have to match this angle going down inside the airplane. We also have to match along here, but that's the easy part, because we're just going to take our Sharpie and we're going to draw along here and get the basic shape that we've got to have for the top. Now the bottom we already have, because it's resting down inside the airplane. I pushed it down inside there so it actually fits. Now we've already got the bottom portion of it. So we're going to pull that out, and this is what our panel is going to look like pretty much. And the rounded edge on the front will probably be even worthwhile, because we've got kind of a rounded tube going through the airplane here. So having the rounded edge works out a little bit too, because it won't give me a sharp edge pushing against that spot. Now there is a bolt down in here, so when I put it back in, I got to make sure I'm past the bolt, which I am. There, I got it down in there. So we can see how it's going to fit. And you can see I'm a little bit long when I draw it with the Sharpie, so I'll cut it off a little shorter than that for the actual pattern for this. Now the other thing we're going to need is we need to know where our screw holes are, which we have a screw here and we have a screw here. So one here, one here. So first of all, I'm just going to draw a little line that centers on that screw on each end. So there are the center lines for the screws. Now the question is exactly where is the screw from our line up here. So we're going to have to determine the distance from here down to the center of our screw. And there's more than one way we could probably do this. Probably the easiest way would be if we had an awl and we take the screw out and we poke a hole through. Well, right now I don't have an awl with me, so we're going to do it with a little measurement and see how close we can kind of come up with. But I may have something else I can punch with. Let me check. All right, I'm going to pull the seat for the moment. And you notice we have a metal seat support. That's not going to stay permanently. That makes it possible getting in and out of the airplane right now. But as you can see, we've got our piece out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these two screws out that we've got, because those are our mounting screws that we're going to have to use in the end, or at least the holes. We'll use different screws than those. But I'm going to pull those two out next. Okay, this is a pesky little screw. Let's try our other one. In doing a little checking, we found out that these two screws have got nuts buried that we can't get to. So we're not going to use them for mounting screws. We're going to actually have to add a couple of points that we can mount with. And we can leave those here, not going to hurt anything, except we're going to have to make a couple of holes where those are. So we've got our actual piece. As you can see, it slides down in here like this. And we're going to just cut out these areas because we need to clear the screw heads for our part here. So I'm going to have to cut out some little round areas in here, roughly like that. So that's the next thing I'm going to do, just so this will fit around the screw heads. All right, we've got here a piece of aircraft grade plywood. This is 1/16 inch thick plywood, birch. No, pardon me, that's not birch, that's mahogany. And we're going to lay out our piece on it, and we're at least get part of it laid out here using a Sharpie. We're going to push it back into place like that. And I'm just going to run the Sharpie around it real quick around our chipboard pattern. And there we have our base part. Now we're going to take, of all things, that's a metal shear that I've got. And 1/16 inch plywood cuts pretty nicely with a metal shear. And you see this works amazingly well for what we're doing. And the reality is this isn't the finish on the piece anyway, so it doesn't matter if the edges have got a little bit of crinkling to them, because we're going to cover this with vinyl. So all we got to have is a good piece of plywood. We got our plywood. but we still have our half rounds right here and here to clear those screws. So I'm going to grab something so we can get the half rounds in here. So here we have a deep throat punch. That is one of the few things that I have purchased that's totally Chinese that actually works pretty good. All we want to do is make some clearance for those screw heads, because when we put our vinyl on, you actually won't see the screw heads when we put it in the airplane. But we do need clearance out of the plywood for the screw heads. So we'll take out both pieces of the die here, because this is real small die, which won't help us for the moment. We're going to use a larger die set. This is the biggest one I've got, and so we're going to go with that as our clearance hole. So put that back in our when you set one of these up, always be sure that your bottom die is proud of the bottom piece here, so that you get a nice punch. So you want to put it up probably, I've got it up close to 1/4 inch. It'll work real good that way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our sample that we drew on, and we're going to put a hole in the center of that. And you see what I've done is gotten a hole in the center of what I drew when we were by the airplane. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite end. Now in both cases, I should easily clear a screw head. And the only purpose in doing that was so that we could actually get holes into our wood here. So now what we're going to do is we'll mark that on the wood so we can quickly cut that out. So now the wood's marked. Now you notice, you remember in the airplane, it has to go like this. So if we're standing at the door, it's going this way. So this is actually inside the side I drew on. So we're just going to put an IN on there, just for reference, so we know that's the in. And we're going to punch our hole right here. Get down here where I can hold on to it nicer. So now we got both of those out, and that's really just to clear screw heads. And in fact, what I can do, move the punch over a little bit. Let me see, I can make it more of a slot. And so we'll just move the punch over a little bit over here. Now in both places we got slots, so you would clear the two screw heads that way. So next, we're going to have to get some vinyl to actually cover that. So we'll be back with you in a minute with the vinyl. Okay, we're back here with our part we're going to cover and a piece of vinyl we're going to use. And in this case, if you've watched one of the Terraplane videos, you'll know this is the same vinyl that was in the Terraplane. I had left over. Goes good with the airplane interior, so that's what's going to get used. So, turn over our vinyl piece. This is the side that's in, or the side the vinyl's got to stick to. Now the glue we're going to use is Rubber and Vinyl 80 spray adhesive by 3M. This seems to work fairly well to do the job, and it's got some things to remember with it. Of course, you're going to shake it up well before you use it. And it tells you to put on 2 coats of this particular adhesive, and you got to let it dry at least 4 minutes, because essentially it's a contact adhesive. So I'm going to spray more than I need for the part. And you see, I tend to put the stuff on fairly thickly. Good coat twice on here, particularly on edges. Now we're going to let that sit. Alright, as we showed you earlier, I made a mark here showing we have an excess hole we don't want. So we're going to take a rivet, which these are aircraft grade soft rivets. This came from Wick's Aircraft Supply. And I've picked out a rivet that's basically going to fill up that hole right there. You see, this is what we're going to end up with. And we're going to take it over to the vise here, turn this over, and we're going to put the rivet in. I'm going to hold on to the rivet, get on the anvil portion of the vise, and all I'm going to do is just hammer it down. And being a soft aluminum rivet, we now have the hole filled up. And as I said, I'm not sure why the hole's there, because there's no hole in the airplane, no reason for that one to exist. So we've filled it up. Now what we'll do is we're going to improve the appearance of this. So we're going to take our little angle grinder with a wire brush in it. This is a surface that somebody's going to run over all the time, and it's going to get scratched. There's no point in polishing it. If you're going to paint it, it's going to get scratched. So why not just wire brush it off, let it have the wire brush marks in it, and it's going to have the best look we can possibly get. So we'll do the rest of that off camera for you. Alright, you can see I got most of the stuff off, and if you were noticing, when I'm down on the ends, I'm going this way away from the part, so I'm not going to grab it. Now we have the other one to do, which we'll be doing the same thing to, and we will do that off camera and show you when it's finished. Alright, to finish these off, remembering of course that these are door sills that people run into all the time. So they're going to get scratched. We got them all nice and clean, we wire brushed them to get them pretty decent. Then we've cleaned them off with some auto sol, which is a metal polish, and we used a microfiber towel and gone and cleaned them off with that. And then we've taken some plain old lacquer thinner, put it on a paper towel, and basically wiped them down to get off any leftover residue. You can see there's a bunch of residue on there that we're taking off. So this is what it's going to look like when it goes on the airplane. Cleaned up, practical, something you can scuff and not be worried about. So there are the finished parts for that. Now we're going to move back over here to our vinyl project, which has been sitting long enough to actually put together. Now the trick is to make sure we get vinyl all the way around the edge. We can't put this to one edge because we're going to fold over. So all the way around, I'm going to make sure I set this so there's some edge to fold over. So set it down in the middle, push outward both ways. And once I've at least got it set on there like that, flip it over, and I'm going to push on it a little bit more. So that's pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have to paint the back of our wood. Just as we had to wait 4 minutes minimum, well, we're going to have to wait 4 minutes minimum again. Because the vinyl's painted, but the wood's not painted on the back. So we're going to have to do that. So the back is painted, and it's going to have to sit and wait for a bit. I'm probably going to put just a little bit more in here, a couple of thin spots. Again, you got to have a minimum of 4 minutes now. And you cannot go longer than 30 minutes according to what the instructions on the vinyl adhesive says. So you got to wait minimum 4, not longer than 30, so we can stick this together. So again, we'll come back when this is ready to stick together. Alright, while this is continuing to dry, I'm going to take it off the newspaper here. And we're going to trim back some of our vinyl because we don't need all this. So we're going to cut this back. And you don't want to cut it too short anyway, because if you have a little more to stick on, it works better. And you're going to get glue on your fingers. Wearing gloves will not work for this because the gloves will stick to the glue and then the glove ends will rip out, so it won't do you any good. And as you can see, I'm always fighting the fact the glue sticks to the scissors. Isn't going to hurt anything. I'll just have to use a little lacquer thinner to clean up the glue when I'm done. Notice I'm going to cut at an angle. You can see where my corner is. You want to cut an angle across here. And again, it's going to stick. Just pull it off. And you see how I'm cutting the corner off at an angle. We're going to do the same thing in the opposite corner. As soon as I get the vinyl off my fingers, we're going to cut an angle like that. Now for regular corners, that's what you're going to do. So now, if we've had enough time, we take our vinyl, pull it real tight, press it down in the center, and we push out towards the side, trying to keep it as tight as we can keep it. Same thing down on the opposite end. And you notice I'm getting plenty of glue on my fingers, not hurting anything. All right, so now we've got one end basically pressed on for the moment. Next thing we're going to want to do is work on this side, but we have a curve down here. So I'm going to put a cut in here, down by the curve. You'll find it'll work better for your scissors to cut down in here than further on, since it's so sticky. And now we're going to fold again. Try to work from the center and work out, and I'm trying to pull and sort of push towards the end at the same time. Okay? And you notice you're going to have a gap at the corner, but the gap's on the back side, so you don't care. Okay, you're going to go do the other end. Again, pushing down and pulling at the same time. Now we've got two of the sides done. Now we're going to flip it over, and we're going to do our semi-curved side here. And because it is curved a bit, it's not very curved, but there's a little curve in here. We're going to do this in a couple of pieces. And the other thing we've got, remember we cut slots in here? Well, I actually don't want the piece behind the slot. So I'm going to cut it at an angle right like that. And notice I didn't cut it any further than down towards the wood. I left it there for the moment. Okay, now you see what I've got here is I'm going to fold this back over. But I've got a little too much material here because it's better not to have this sticking to the vinyl because it won't actually adhere well. So we're going to take off a little bit more there. And we'll put our piece in. And you see, we try to not have the vinyl on top of the vinyl. So I've not got it on top of it. Now we're going to work our way down this way. We're going to leave this alone. We're going to do the same thing down here for our other slot for that screw head. Cut back both ways. I've only come down just to the wood. And we're going to take our next piece that we put our cut in before, fold that over. Now we'll fold this one. Again, it's got the cutout here that we're not going to mess with yet. Now we're coming down to the end. Now on the end, I'll do an angle cut again. So we're angled, and we're going to have to cut this back. It looks just a touch long, trying to keep vinyl from being on top of vinyl. So take that off, and we'll fold this one in. Okay, so now we've got that one. Now all we got left are these problems and our curve down here. Now because this is so curved, we're going to snip it again, and we're going to put another triangle out of it, like that, and we're going to bring this piece over, and you can see that would end up over on top of the other one, so let's take and cut this off as much as we can. All right, and now we'll get a little fold over, but most of it's not over the vinyl, so we've got that. Now this one's going to have to go over the vinyl. We're not going to have much material. So we're going to leave it and we're going to pull it tight. And remember, none of this bottom edge is ever going to show. We'll get the glue off of here in a minute, but none of that's ever going to show. So that's not a big deal to you. All right, so we've got these little spots left. Now what we want to do there is we're going to need a knife or a razor blade. I've got a razor blade here I can use. And we're going to cut with the razor blade back this way, like that, on each of these. And then we're going to fold these over. The only purpose here is the fact we want that screw head in there. And this top edge will be hidden under the edge here anyway in the airplane. So this gives us a little pocket in each place for those screw heads. That's all that's about. And that's the only reason we've got just a teeny bit of fold over here, is so that we have a way to finish off that edge a bit. So that's what the part looks like. Now you see we've got a little glue on the front of it. So let's see what we can do about that. All right, here we have something called Prep-All. It's for prior to painting and sanding for cars. Works in metal, plastic, fiberglass, and is fast acting, it says. Well, it actually works really good. So I'm going to put a little bit of that on a paper towel. Now just to make sure, depending on the vinyl you're using, take one of your scrap pieces of vinyl and rub on it and see if any of it comes off. And it doesn't come off, so I'm going to clean up the glue with this. Now it'll take a few seconds to dry, but you can see we've done absolutely nothing to the vinyl other than take the glue off of it. So that works good for that, for removing the glue. Now removing it off your fingers and off that scissors, honestly, you'll do better with lacquer thinner than you will with the Prep-All. The Prep-All will take it off like I was showing you, but this is a lot more expensive and therefore I don't like to use it for everything. But when you're doing it on the vinyl, use the Prep-All. Alright, so I've gone back, I've gotten the lacquer thinner, to clean up the scissors. You can see it takes it off real well, and it's much more aggressive than the Prep-All, but you don't want to use lacquer thinner on your vinyl. You'll be sorry if you do that. And likewise, you can use the lacquer thinner to remove the stuff off your fingers and get your fingers cleaned off. So at least I've got the glue off my fingers now. Alright, we're back with the airplane with our panel, which we're going to slide down in here and try to get in position where it's supposed to be. There we go. And where our screw holes or indentations sort of line up for the screws, got that in place. Now let's see how we do with this. I'm going to get everything to go in here. Oop, wrong direction. That end goes there. That looks a lot better. This one goes that way. Got it? Now the other thing I've got to do is actually line up the screw holes in the airplane, which is going to take some doing because I can't see where anything is when I get this together. Okay, so now we've got our panel we made mounted in here. Our screws, as you can see, that we couldn't use are hidden. We've got our 2 door sill plates in here and a series of 4 screws that we've got to put in, all stainless steel. The first one's fastened. I'm going to fasten up the other 3 here with a power screwdriver. Make sure that stays up in there. And there you go. We have the panel in the airplane. Now the panel is not fastened this way, which I'm thinking of adding a screw under here, and I probably will as a final point because it's well fastened back here, but with a little curve in here and stuff, it might be a good idea to put a screw with a finishing washer here. But otherwise, that's basically done. Now I do have to put back my back panel, which you can't see from there. Looks like this. I have to put that back in and set that in the back of the airplane. And the door jamb area will be totally done now, which is a big improvement over what it was. And you can feel okay with the idea that you can scrape against here, but it doesn't look crummy and half painted and a mess. And we filled in a hole in the airplane that wasn't supposed to be there. So that gives you a little idea of how you can make a vinyl covered panel. Something to remember is you don't have to use plywood as a substrate. You could use aluminum, you could use plastic such as ABS. Whatever you choose for a substrate though, make sure it's compatible with the glue you're using. As far as getting vinyl, that can be gotten many places online, and a lot of people, believe it or not, probably have a Joann Fabrics in their area, might even have some vinyls there. The vinyl I'm using happened to come from LeBaron Bonney / Hampton Coach online. and it just happens to look appropriate with the interior of this airplane. Most of this interior is quite old and is original to the airplane for a long time. I don't think it was built with this color, but this is how it's been. And there are other things I have to do here eventually to fix up the interior. But today, that gives you an idea of how to do a vinyl panel.